If you're thinking about selling your home in Metro Atlanta this year, I need you to watch this video before you sign any agreements with anyone. Because right now in May 2026, the Atlanta market is doing something most agents aren't really telling you about. Inventory is up 10% year over year. 1 in 3 listings is actually taking a price cut. The days on market has jumped from 57 days to 70 days, and buyers are pickier than ever because of the rates. If your house isn't the perfect home, buyers in this market are going to be a lot more demanding than what you're used to in the last couple of years. The days of selling as is and expected to not contribute any concessions to buyers are gone. If you're looking to sell in the next couple months, I bet you're looking at a couple options right now, trying to figure out which one is best. And here's the truth. There has never been one way to sell a house. There's actually 4 ways in the Atlanta market and most markets around the country. And the right one for you depends on your situation and your goals, not your agent's commission. I'm Franklin. Hello, I'm Franklin. I'm a lifelong Metro Atlanta resident, and my team offers all 4 options I'm about to show you in this video today. We're both investors and agents, so we understand what it actually takes to get a home sold, what it takes to get their house in top condition. We can offer you options that make the most sense that your agent might not be willing to put on the table for you. So today, I'm going to walk you through what each option is, what it costs you, and how, and which option makes the most sense for you. Which options make the most sense depending on your situation. Let's break down the first one, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows about, is just listing your property on the market, getting top dollar. This is the traditional path that everyone really talks about and everyone really knows about, putting it on Zillow, make sure everyone sees it, put a sign in the yard, you hire an agent, or maybe you sell it for sale by owner, you list it on the MLS, and they run showings, they negotiate offers. This usually takes 60 to 90 days if you pick the right agent and you market your property in the right way. Most homes are sold this way, and they're probably going to continue this way forever. But for certain people, this option is the most tricky because it expects the most from sellers. If you don't have the funds to make updates, if you can't provide convenient access to people because maybe you have pets or maybe personal obligations like working from home, things like that, the more inconveniences you offer to buyers to not be able to see your house, the less likely they're going to be able to make an offer on your home. Here's the honest downside in 2026. You're committing to 60 to 90 days minimum from list to close. Realistically, closer to 90 to 120 days in this market if you have a property that might not really fit for an FHA or conventional buyer. Basically, any price that's above the median home value of about $400,000, it's going to be a lot harder to get your home sold if you're not pricing it in the right way. Your house has to be show ready all the time, right? For a lot of listings, you're going to have strangers walk through, lock boxes. You're going to be out of the house on the weekends just trying to get it sold so you have the most access. Tired house gets tired offers. If your property ends up sitting on the market for right now, anytime more than 30 days, you're just going to end up getting lower offers from anybody that really wants to offer on your home, because the best offers really come in that first 2 weeks. Those are the most active buyers. They're really looking for anything that shows up on the market, and they're constantly comparing to what's on the market in your area every single day. So, if you're going to go through the listing route, you got to make sure that you have a great property, or at least a decent property that can stand up to the other houses in the neighborhood. If you don't, you're really wasting time on the market, selling it at a price that is unrealistic for all the buyers in the market that aren't investors. Now, I know a lot of people that want to get the most money. They don't really want to list because they don't want to pay any commissions. They don't want to pay 5 to 6% in commissions. But look, you might be reluctant to do it yourself. The best option is to work with the best option is to work with an agent. It's going to net you the most money, even though you're paying 5 to 6% in commissions. If you work with any investors directly, I can tell you right now that that's the next option we're going to go through. But they're definitely not going to give you anywhere close to the amount of money you can get if you list your property. However, it's not the fastest route always to get your property listed. It's just getting you the most money possible. If that's you, working with an agent makes the most sense. I wouldn't even waste your time considering the other options because it doesn't even make sense for you. But here's what agents won't tell you. If you price wrong, or if they end up telling you the wrong price to list, it's going to take you a lot longer to sell your property. And you actually might end up selling less than the other 3 options if you're dealing with the wrong agent. If you price wrong, pricing your home incorrectly can lead to you wasting months of you wasting your money on your mortgage when you should have been moved into your next place or wherever you were trying to go next. Your home should have sold, and you shouldn't have to cover those extra payments if your agent knew what they were doing and making sure to tell you to get your property sold in the fastest time possible. Because that inevitably helps you get the most money for your property and also leads to you spending less money keeping that home so that you can buy the next one. This is right for anybody who has at least 60 days to really get their property sold. Their house is in good condition where they don't need to update anything. They already have a brand new kitchen and they have a roof that's less than 10 years old, maybe new bathrooms, right? Great yard. Those are homes that are great for the market and will definitely sell on the market really fast. If you just have, kind of just like a house where maybe you have pets and they scratched up the hardwood floors and they scratched up all the doors, ruined the carpets maybe, then you're going to have a lot harder of a time to get closer to top dollar. And you definitely should expect to sell a lot less if you're going to have a property like that. Now, this really makes the most sense to list if you have a lot of equity and you're trying to get the absolute most money possible. You can handle showings. You can handle the uncertainty because you have a great property that you're staying at. Those are really the best options for people who look to list their property and get top dollar. The second option to get your property sold, which a lot of people on a daily basis get the wrong idea about, it's probably stuff you've seen driving down the highway where there's signs that are willing to offer a cash offer for your house, or maybe ads online saying that they'll buy your house cash. A lot of people want this option thinking that investors are going to pay full price for what their house is worth. Now, all homeowners want this option, but let's just be realistic. If this was an option that was actually paying top dollar for homes cash, I don't see how this business could be profitable. Like, they're literally buying a house for what it's worth today to sell it in a month for what it's worth in a month. I mean, how much appreciation can really happen if they didn't buy your house at a discount, right? This option is a lot of people look at this option really badly, like investors are taking equity from homeowners, but let's just think about it logically. Would you drop $500,000 on a house that you can only reasonably sell for the same amount in the next few months? What profit do you really think you're going to make if you do something like that in this kind of market? You're going to lose probably 5 to 10% of your own money because you have to pay for commissions on the other end of it. So that's why a lot of investors are not even just willing to pay anywhere close to what retail value is for your home. And I wouldn't even consider this option if this is what you're trying to do. If what you're trying to do is basically get top dollar for your house. If you aren't aware, investors aim to make at least 10 to 20% profit after adding repairs to the home purchase. So when does this option really make the most sense? This option makes the most sense when homes are basically unlivable. When you're in a tight situation, like inheriting a property and now being responsible for that mortgage, even though you already have one of your own, living at your own house with your own family. This is a great option for anybody who has a home that needs too many updates, right? Where the bathroom and the kitchens need work. The floors might be outdated and the floorboards might be ruined because of dog pee and poop, right? Those kind of things. And maybe the carpet's ruined as well. Those things need to be replaced, and it can kind of add up to, $20,000, $30,000 that you have to spend on your house before you even get it ready to put on the market. All the things home buyers right now really want is, unless it's a really good deal, maybe like 10, 15% under market, there may be buyers willing to pay for fixer uppers like that. But they are mostly right now just looking for homes that are moving ready because the interest rate's really high. They really don't have a lot of money to spend. If they end up buying a property that needs a ton of work, they're going to not only be, negative on the monthly payments they have to spend every month, but they have to probably bring $20,000, $30,000 to just update their home when, they might have a job, they might have other obligations. They really don't have the time like maybe buyers in the past used to just spend all their time and energy repairing a home. So that's why a lot of buyers right now don't want to spend any more money than they have to. They really want something that's kind of moving ready, and they don't have to deal with any issues with the property. They can just move in as they like and live in it as soon as possible. So right now, because it is a buyer's market, most buyers are looking to fight for a good deal. And the option is really great for anybody who, like I said, is realistic about their house needing work. Many sellers in Georgia really get repair costs wrong nowadays just because of what they're used to. But, in the last decade, labor has actually gone up a lot because of inflation. Materials have gone up as well recently because of the recent tariffs that have been imposed. So right now, it's hard for investors to really make deals work at the price sellers usually want. But for some sellers, this option makes the most sense. You don't have to deal with any showings. You don't have to do any repairs. There's no financing contingencies. You don't pay for any commissions. So usually the offers that investors give up front are commission free. They also close in less than 30 days. It's pretty certain that they're going to do it, as long as title is clear, of course. And most investors, I would say, in any market, they cover the closing costs as well. So you'd be usually getting a net number to you. You should just expect that offer or that price that you end up closing at for your home is going to be somewhere between 15 to 20%, or I even say 20 to 40% less than what you can actually get on the market. It's kind of a waste of time if your property is in great condition and it doesn't need any work. So if you end up trying to reach out to any investors that kind of do those kind of things, you're wasting your own time and you're wasting their time. It's just better to go and find, probably another real estate agent to get your property listed on the market. Like I've said, you're going to sell 20 to 40% less than the market value in your area. Unless your home has at least 10 to 15% in repairs, you should not sell your home directly to an investor. If you really have to, you can sell into an investor, but you're usually missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity. I had a seller recently work with an investor instead of us just because they were too afraid of making repairs, things like that. So I guess it happens. This option is really right for anybody who may have taken on a distressed property that they didn't expect all these kind of issues to occur, and they thought that they could really handle more than what they were expecting to. So, a lot of people that kind of fall into this are maybe people that are going through divorce, or they just inherited a property where they have to pay for the mortgage and they already have their own home to stay at. So they're behind on payments because they can't keep up with two payments for a property that they don't even live in, right? I mean, divorce is an obvious answer. They don't want to live together anymore. They should try to get out. So sometimes they don't really have the repairs to make and they just don't want to deal with each other anymore, right? So that happens a lot. It also happens for people who may have rented out their property and they don't really want to spend any more money into repairing the house. This is usually what happens a lot. A lot of homes are sold this way, where they might have been rented out for a decades, and now they're just ready to sell it. But they haven't made any repairs over the years, so they end up selling it for a lot less than what they bought it for, or maybe just a little bit more than what they bought it for. Guarantee and a guaranteed close with no surprises is something that you care most about and you value your time and peace, then this option is great for you. Honestly, it's probably going to be your best option because any other option, you're going to be wasting a lot more time and you're going to end up selling your property for cash anyway. We're going to go into option 3, which is kind of talked about. Maybe some people really know about it, maybe you don't, but it's the one that's quietly making the difference for sellers in 2026. Creative financing, it's kind of an umbrella term for two different structures on how to get your property sold. It's mostly around seller financing and subject to. Now, let me explain what those things are and why this is different than trying to sell it on the market or maybe even a cash buyer. They usually share one thing in common is that, it's kind of you're lending out and you're basically loaning money yourself to the buyer. They have to pay you back and you become the bank in a sense, right? So in seller financing, you end up buying a house and you get to negotiate the terms with the buyer. Right now, it makes the most sense if you're willing to offer basically an interest rate less than the market right now, which is at 6-7%. If you could offer a rate that maybe about 4 or 5%, and you're okay with just making 10% down, right? This is going to be a lot of buyers that really are interested in your property because they either don't have 20% or they can't get it qualified for a loan. So seller financing is great. You don't have to go through any credit bureau. You absolutely can just sell it to somebody. The worst case might be that they don't pay for their mortgage payments anymore, which is completely sensible. In that case, the worst case scenario for you is that you get to keep all the payments that they made up until the point that they stop making payments. You get to keep the down payment, and you have the right to actually foreclose on them and take the house back. If you end up doing that, you actually can get the house back, keep all the repairs they might have made as well, and just try to sell it again. You can either sell it again as a seller finance, or now that you have more equity, or maybe the house is worth a little bit more, you can actually just sell it on the market and be done with it and sell it clear. Just sell it to somebody, let somebody else get a loan. Maybe they have a cash offer and just sell it outright. This really makes the most sense for anybody who might have, maybe a lot of equity and they don't want to pay too many taxes when they actually sell their house. They're willing to make a little bit less money up front, maybe more money in the long run. Now, the other option for creative financing is actually called subject to. Subject to is usually for people who are in the opposite end of things, where they don't have a lot of equity. They usually have, honestly, less than 15% of equity, meaning that I would say even less than 10% equity, where 6% of it is going straight to agents. So, they only really have 4% of equity left. And then with that 4%, they might have to offer another 2% in closing costs, maybe 3% in closing costs just to get a buyer approved. And they end up really only making 1% profit, right? With subject to, it's a lot different. You end up actually just finding a buyer who can actually take on your mortgage payments for you. And you don't have to cover any, you don't have to really do anything other than just give them the payments and you get to cash out. That's about what I explain. Basically, subject to, and most often the transactions work, is that they'll pay you at least 5 to 10% down payment up front and take on all your payments for you. Now, this is a great option for anybody who maybe moved to Georgia and they need to relocate because their job's asking them to come back to work. They were remote workers, right? And they really don't have any reason to keep the house anymore. They need to sell in the next few months. They don't have enough equity. This makes the most sense for those kind of buyers. The next people, anybody who has low equity, it's great for subject to, although unless your rate is lower than the current rate. If it's not less than 5%, most people are not going to be interested in your property and really take on those payments because they realistically could actually get a loan out there that has a lower rate and have lower payments on your house. So you'd end up with less. The only reason why this works is because you actually end up with more money than what an agent could really bring you. An agent's going to put your property on the market and they might make 10% more than what you end up selling it for in the best case scenario, but you really don't make that much money. If it ends up being, you have less than 10%, you are definitely going to either walk away from closing with no money made, or you might have to actually bring money to the closing just to actually close on your property. So subject to is a great option for anybody that needs to kind of move right away and they don't need to make the most money possible, but they want to make a little bit more than what the market can actually give them. Now, fourth option, which I can tell you now, there's actually a ton of investors that offer this daily, and you could probably call up any company right now that you can find online. They're all over the place, right? They're not really investors. They're actually what we call wholesalers. And they also give cash offers too. They can be deceiving and kind of call themselves investors where they don't actually buy the house. They actually just buy your house and sell it to somebody else and make a quick profit, right? But there are good ones. And they all end up kind of offering this solution where if your house might need too much, it's too nice for them. It doesn't need that much work. They'll give you something called a partnership agreement where get a higher cash offer. Basically, it's going to be probably 20-30% more than what their real cash offer would be to buy your house outright, put the money into actually repairing it. It's also legally called a novation, right? This option makes the most sense if you want to make a little bit more money than a cash offer. You're not really in a rush where you need to sell in less than 30 days. It's a little bit more flexible. It's similar in timeline as a listing, and you actually are listing your property on the market. Now, there's a lot of investors that offer up the solution, but they don't actually kind of explain the details of everything that really go on, and you end up kind of going to closing confused and not really sure what really happened. But essentially, a partnership agreement is where a buyer may work with an investor, and instead of the investor coming and buying their property outright, they can just partner up with the seller, agree to a price up front. So you get a guaranteed price up front instead of have to worry about what offers come in. And basically, that guaranteed price up front is going to probably be less than your property from about 15 to 20% of what the property could sell for. Although you don't have to pay for any closing costs, you don't have to pay for any commissions, you don't have to pay for really anything. You get to show up to that closing and you get to sign off on the amount that you agreed with that investor. They handle any repairs that might need to be made by the conventional buyer or FHA buyer, so that way the loan actually gets approved, and they make any profit left after paying for the commissions, closing costs, and repairs. This option makes the most sense if you want to make more money, but you don't have any money really to spend on repairs or updating your property, and you don't want to have to deal with any headaches of negotiating with offers, dealing with agents. You just want somebody else to deal with it all. You just get to show up to closing and get paid. This is what the option is best for. A lot of people think this option doesn't make that much sense. And I can tell you, it makes a lot of sense for investors where they don't have to buy your property, pay for closing costs, and then hold your property until they can actually get the repairs done, where they're going to be holding it for at least 1 to 3 months. Then they have to get it staged and they have to take photos and then they have to relist it. And then they have to wait another month just to get an offer to then close another month after that. So, they not only have to front, let's say $200,000-$300,000 of their own money towards buying your property, spend another $50,000-$60,000 in repairing your property, and then wait another 2 months to actually sell it. So this is why this option is even made. It's made to kind of speed up things for both the seller and investors to make a profit as well as get their property sold. And it really makes a lot of sense for people who are a little bit flexible in time, but don't want to deal with the headache of negotiating with buyers and dealing with agents and paying for repairs and things like that. This option really makes the most sense, and you'll actually net more money than most cash offers investors will give you. You will make less money most times if you then just listing it, to be honest. If you think that you can handle the repairs yourself, you can deal with the negotiating yourself, you have all these things that you're confident about yourself, then this is a good option. But other than that, I wouldn't really take this option because you can make more money listing the property yourself at the end of the day, right? Now, that's all 4 options. We offer all 4 options, and it really just depends on your situation. Like I said, which ones make the most sense for you, depending on what type of buyer you are. And yeah, that's really it. If you're interested in working together and coming up with a solution to actually get your property sold and not have to deal with any more agents or investors that might be full of crap and not really worth your time working with, reach out to me. Schedule an appointment below, and we can kind of come up with a time that makes sense for the both of us to meet and go over what your options really make sense. We can go over which option makes the most sense for you.